Almost every day when Derek got home from school, he would drop his backpack in the hall, grab a Gatorade from the fridge, and turn on Fortnite. "How was school today?" his mom Gail would ask. "Terrible, as usual," he would often say without looking up from the screen.
Then one day his mom decided to sit down next to him. "Mind if I join you?" she asked. Derek was confused but said sure. She asked him to explain the rules of the game to her and to help her understand what terms like Victory Royale referred to.
The next day, she joined him again, and then again the next day, and the next day. She started making snacks specifically for their Fortnite time together. And over time, in between kills, she started to ask him deeper questions. What did he think about his friend Mac's new girlfriend? Was there anyone he had a crush on? What was his relationship with God like these days?
Gail was able to take common moments and turn them into connection moments. The story of Gail and Derek highlights that while some days it feels like parents, step-parents, and grandparents don't have much influence, the best research shows they do.
After comparing 200 interviews with religious parents to existing national databases, Dr. Christian Smith and Dr. Amy Adamczyk wrote in their book, Handing Down the Faith, that the single most powerful causal influence on the religious lives of American teenagers and young adults is the religious lives of their parents. Not their peers, not the media, not their youth group leaders or clergy, not their religious school teachers.
Another even larger study conducted by Vern Bankston found that grandparents play a highly significant and sometimes overlooked role in the faith formation of their grandkids.
So what do these roles look like day to day? If you're a family member or caregiver who wants to maximize your mentoring impact on the young people closest to you, 10 by 10's 3 mentoring keys can give you the help you need.
The first mentoring key is that small acts are greater than grand gestures when it comes to forming the next generation. This principle is true and relevant for parents, grandparents, step-parents, foster parents, anyone who loves and cares for a young person.
You don't need to spell your love in kerosene or buy your teen the newest sneakers or designer clothes. Just a text to say you were thinking of them, or time spent together doing something they love can go a long way. Here are 3 ways to live into this key.
First, care about what your young person cares about. Are they an athlete? Go to their games. Are they a gamer? Be like Gail and ask if they'll teach you how to play or let you watch. Do they like art? Have them explain their favorite art style to you. Demonstrating a non-judgmental interest in their interests buys you credibility with them and opportunities for conversation.
Second, ask questions and listen intently. You may truly be a fountain of spiritual knowledge, but asking for your young person's point of view demonstrates that you care about their perspective and that they're more than just a project to you. Asking questions like these and then restating their responses in your own words can build understanding and trust. If you could ask God one question, what would it be? When is a time in your life that you felt closest to God? When is a time in your life that you felt farthest away from God?
Third, bake conversation into whatever else you're doing. Regarding the commandments of God, Deuteronomy 6:7 says, "Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." In other words, having intentional conversation doesn't require completely clearing our schedules. It just requires us to build it into whatever else we're doing in our lives, just like Gail did after school with Derek.
There can even be a blessing in the busyness. Partial distractions help conversations feel less like confrontations and help them go deeper. Consider what your schedule looks like over the next week or 2 and see if there's anything you might invite your young person to join for.
The second mentoring key is questions are greater than answers. The Gospels record Jesus asking 307 different questions to people about a whole range of issues. These are questions, as Martin Copenhaver describes in Jesus is the Question, about longing, compassion, identity, faith, doubt, worry, love, healing, and abundance. In other words, Jesus asked about topics that mattered to others, not just topics that mattered to him.
Along the way, Jesus is also asked 183 questions, but he only answers 3 of them directly. Now, if anyone was in the position to offer definitive answers to people's questions, it was Jesus. But he often saw it as more important to turn others' questions back around and invite them to re-examine the ideas and assumptions that they were bringing to the table.
Working off of that, here are 3 principles to keep in mind. First, ask about things your young person cares about. Just because you care about philosophical proofs for God's existence doesn't mean your young person will. Ask questions that are relevant to their own life experiences. Like, what's the best thing going on in your life right now? And what's the hardest thing? What bands or musicians are you listening to these days? And what do you like about them? Do you prefer to stand out, to blend in? Why do you think that is?
Second, embrace the tension. Don't be afraid to ask questions and sit with them. And even when you're asked a question, don't feel like you have to immediately answer it. Let the question hang in the air and give your young person time to explore their own thoughts about their questions first.
Third, listen well. David Augsburger once wrote, "Being heard is so close to being loved that for the average person, they are nearly indistinguishable."
Practically, listening well means putting away your phone, restating what your young person says in your own words, and listening to understand rather than to respond. Doing this makes it clear to our young people that we care about them and their perspective. The final mentoring key that can strengthen your relationships with young people is authenticity is greater than pretending.
What grandparents may feel they lack in trendiness, they can make up with authenticity. Many grandparents are past pretending to be someone they aren't, and this can help grandkids also feel like they don't need to perform either. Grandparents also have more life experience to draw on, and so sharing about their breadth of experience and why they now choose to follow Jesus can help situate faith in a bigger context than teens live in.
One of the top questions we get asked by grandparents is, what do we do when our adult children have drifted from the faith and we still want to influence our grandkids? Great question, and a tough one. The research from Smith, Adamczyk, and Bankston shows that what parents model at home typically has the biggest long-term impact on young people's faith formation. Deuteronomy 4:9 says, regarding God's commandments, teach them to your children and to their children after them. In other words, God clearly taps parents and grandparents for the faith formation of young people.
We don't have easy answers for these dynamics, but the solution is definitely not to pretend like your faith doesn't matter to you. Part of being authentic means embracing who you actually are and where you actually are on your journey.
And whatever faith dynamics exist in your family, you can't lose by continuing to choose kindness and warmth.
Here are 3 practical ideas about how to live with authenticity that are relevant to any family faith situation.
First, be honest about what your faith has meant and not meant to you. If asked, share about why you're a Christian. Share about how your relationship with God has sustained you and changed you. But don't feel like you have to create Christian propaganda. False conceptions that becoming a Christian leads to nonstop bliss and euphoria can set young people up for a crash course with disillusionment and even a rejection of their faith.
Second, say, "I don't know." If your young person asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, be honest. Don't feel like you have to make up something on the spot. Maybe sometimes the Holy Spirit can give you the perfect answer unexpectedly, but it's generally okay to say, "Let me get back to you on that," and to take some time to think and research. Maybe you can even invite your young person to join you in that research.
Third, if asked, use phrases that center your experience. Personal stories are hard to refute because you're sharing your own experience. Use first-person pronouns instead of second-person pronouns or universalized terms. As a general rule, storytelling captures people's attention more easily than the assertion of abstract principles.
Going back to the story of Derek and his mom, Gail. Over time, Fortnite after school became the time she looked forward to most each day. Then one day, when Gail asked Derek how his spiritual life was going, Derek dropped a bomb. He wasn't even sure if he believed in God anymore. Gail froze. The last thing she wanted was for her son to lose faith in God. But then she took a deep breath and realized that she should be honest.
"I've felt that way too," she said. Derek was surprised as she continued. "When your father left, I was so angry at God. I couldn't understand why God would let something like this happen. And to be honest, I still don't have the answer to that question. But I've seen how God has continued to take care of us even after that."
Derek didn't immediately recommit his life to Christ, but his mom's honesty about her own experiences of doubt created a context where he could be honest about his doubts and questions too. And over time, realizing that God could handle his questions enabled him to trust God in ways he hadn't even thought necessary before his doubts began.
The research from Smith and Adamczyk shows that more than anything else, it is the everyday conversations about faith that have the most lasting and significant spiritual impact.
At Axis, we call this the one conversation that lasts a lifetime. The one conversation is about entering into our kids' world, caring about what they care about, asking curious questions, and seizing opportunities to talk about deeper issues whenever they naturally arise.
And when we're able to take a step back and take the long view, we find that there's less pressure to fix everything all at once or to try and squeeze every topic in within a particular time frame. The ultimate goal of a parent or caregiver is to just keep the conversation going, and making use of the 3 mentoring keys will help us do exactly that.